there and welcome back, or welcome to my channel, Stitches Past 5. My name is Vera and I am a knitter based out of Austria, and on here I like to share anything that's going on in my knitting life, sometimes a little bit into my crocheting or my crafting otherwise, but this is mainly a knitting focused channel. So today it is November 1st while I'm recording this video, so we are nearing Christmas, which is a little bit strange to think about because it feels like summer has just ended. Where we are, the weather is all over the place. That's normal here, we're in the mountains, so we get warm winds at any time of year, and today's one of those days. So today we were out in the forest and it was super warm. So it doesn't exactly feel like Christmas just yet, but as a knitter, you're always kind of like looking ahead, and Christmas might not be right around the corner, but it is coming up in around 8 weeks, 2 months. So today I thought I would come on here and share some Christmas gift ideas that you could knit for your friends and family this year. Now, I know that Christmas gift knitting is one of those things that people either love to do or really don't like doing, because of course knitting takes up a lot of time, and when you spend hours and hours and hours on a pair of socks for someone, not even knowing if they're going to wear them or not, it can often feel a little bit frustrating leading up to it. I am someone who likes to gift knit, but I don't make it a thing where people then expect me to gift knit them something every single year. Sometimes I will gift knit some people something, and then there'll be a year or two where I just don't. And this year I've kind of made the decision that I'm not going to be making gifts for everyone, but I will make a little something here or there. I've been looking at what I could make for some people, and I thought I would share some of those patterns with you. So I'm going to share a list of 20 patterns that I think will be super cute to knit for someone. I'm going to create a Ravelry folder and link that folder down below so that you have all the patterns there. And yeah, I think I have a pretty good selection. Some are items that will go really quickly, or at least from looking at the pattern, I think they will go really quickly, and some of them might take a little bit longer, so depending on the amount of time that you have and what you're looking to knit, I hope that there is something there for you as well. These are all in no particular order. I'm gonna mix them all up, and yeah, I'm gonna kind of talk about them as they come up on my Ravelry here. Before we get started though, I want to share what I'm wearing today really quickly. I'm wearing my Elisabeth blouse. This is a pattern by PetiteKnit, and I knit this up around about Christmas time, so it kind of felt right to wear it today. I knit this up a year ago, from December up until I think I finished it in February or March. And this is, I actually added stripes, so I hope you can see it here. This was my second Elisabeth blouse that I knit. I made it in a size small for myself. Actually, no, this is the size extra small because my gauge was slightly larger, and that worked out perfectly fine. And the yarn was a Christmas gift for my parents, which is why I knit it up around Christmas time. And I knit it up in the yarn that's called Touch by the Beautiful Yarn Company, which I believe is a New Zealand-based company, and it is a possum merino silk mix, so it is a lovely piece. Now, also obviously acknowledging that knitting a sweater for someone for Christmas is probably a little bit too much, especially a sweater at a gauge that is as small as this one. So without further ado, let's get into some patterns that will hopefully serve as inspiration for your gifts knit this Christmas. The first one I have here is a pattern that kind of keeps grabbing my attention because I just think it's such a beautiful looking pattern. These are the Old Mittens by Susanne Müller, or Paula Strickt. And it is a pattern from December 2022. It is knit up in half fisherman's rib stitch, so it's a pair of mittens, and the gauge you should achieve with half fisherman's rib stitch is 23 stitches and 50 rows and 10 centimeters. And the suggested needle size is a 3mm needle. So this is probably not going to be the fastest project that you ever make, but again, it's a pair of gloves, and if you are looking to kind of move away from stockinette and into some different stitches, I think half fisherman's rib stitch is a really nice way into that, because it is still very repetitive, it is still very intuitive after a while, and I think it just looks super crisp, especially if you compare it to 1x1 ribbing. I think it's just a very neat version of that. And I think these mittens, if you pick a neutral color, I think that they would go really well for a lot of people, men or women or whoever you have in your life. And I think they can really elevate any outfit. So I think that's a gift that would really work for a wide range of people, especially if you keep the tones a little bit more neutral. Yeah. I think I will definitely be making them at some point. I'm not sure if I'll make them for myself or for someone else. But whenever I look at patterns, they always like catch my attention. So I think that's a pretty good sign. Next is a pattern that I've actually made twice myself. And it is also a pattern that is great if you have some scrap yarn lying around, or if you just want something super simple on your needles. It is called The Simple Thing by Melina Burrell. It is essentially very similar to any of the other mini scarves you see out there. There's a lot of patterns for it that I find very similar. This is a free pattern, which is why I wanted to include it here instead of some of the other patterns. And it is a mini scarf in garter stitch with an I-cord edging. Now, I've made this twice myself. One of them I actually have here, so I'll show you. It is your typical like mini scarf. What I did, I actually decreased the rate of increases, so you'll see that mine is quite narrow and doesn't really increase in width too quickly, but that was intentional, and I love this thing. I wear it all the time, which also makes me think that it will be a really great gift. Actually, this was my second one that I made because the first one got hijacked for me when my grandmother saw what I made. She kept it for herself, which actually made me really happy, and I knew I would be able to make myself another one pretty quickly. Now, this pattern does have a suggested gauge. It is DK weight yarn and 24 stitches and 28 rows in 10 centimeters in garter stitch. But because of the pattern and how it's constructed, it actually doesn't really matter what yarn you use or what needles you use, because the way it works is you just like make half of it, and then at the widest part or at half of your yarn, which is why it's also a great scrap project, you just start decreasing. And I think that way it guarantees you that you can like finish the project with the yarn you have, because you just weigh your yarn. And it's also a very easy knit. The only thing you have to be paying attention to is like the rate of your decreases. So I just use a stitch marker to indicate where I decreased or increased. And yeah, it's therefore very mindless. I actually lied, this is the third one I made, I remember now. I made it as a gift last year for someone, and I remember just knitting it on the airplane because it was very mindless and very easy. And the nice thing as well is that because like the way I like to make them, they're only this wide, so I usually get away with like even just using like a sock needle or like a shorter like round needle, so it really doesn't take up a lot of space either, and it's a really nice project for when you're traveling. But I'm probably not really telling anyone anything new here because everyone has probably made a mini scarf, but I just also think that they would be a really good gift for most people. Next we have an accessory. It is a scrunchie. It is called the Bisou scrunchie by Camille K. And this is a really cute knit scrunchie. I think it's meant to be knit in a lace weight like mohair type yarn, which kind of gives it like that lighter, airier feeling, which I think is really beautiful and delicate. But of course, I think you can use whatever yarn you have at home for these. The recommended gauge here, and of course again it's a scrunchie, how much can go wrong, but the recommended gauge is 20 stitches and 24 rows and 10 centimeters and stockinette stitch on 4.5 and 5 millimeter needles. And there are two things that I really like about this pattern. The first one is that it's available to us for free, and the second one is that you could probably make a set of them and gift it to someone. Like, how cute would it be if you gifted like 2 or 3 scrunchies to like one of your good friends or something for Christmas? I think they're pretty easy to make, and I'm sure the person who receives them would love them. I think the mohair is a really good idea here though, to just like give it a little bit of elegance. Next is another scarf, but this one I guess is more of a shawl because it is a little bit larger, so of course it will take a little bit longer. But this is called A Simple Affair by Sunder Yarn Co. This is a pattern that is knit up in garter stitch, but there is some very basic eyelet detailing throughout the scarf, and then from what it looks like it finishes up in a ribbing. The recommended gauge here is 17 stitches and 30 rows in garter stitch, and the needle sizes are 4.5 and 5mm needles, which makes me think that even though it is a shawl, it will knit up like relatively quickly. Probably not as quickly as a mini scarf if you made it in the same yarn, but I don't think it'll be too long. The images on Ravelry show them in like various sizes, and one of them is like a full body shawl. So I think that one would obviously be a bit of a bigger project, a bit of a bigger undertaking, but I also think these are super versatile, and depending on the color and yarn you choose, could really make a great gift for most people. The next pattern is another pair of mittens, and these, from what they look like, would knit up really quickly. They're called the Nola Mitts by Svetlana Volkova, and it's a really new pattern. It's from September 2025. The recommended yarn is Drops Air, and I think a lot of people already have that in stash. And the gauge here is 16 stitches and 22 rows and 10cm in stockinette stitch, which makes me think that they're quite loose, like loose gauge gloves, because like I do use the Drops Air sometimes, and when I use it I can get it anywhere between 22 stitches and like 15 stitches, because it is a very versatile yarn and like in terms of the gauge that it can give you. But these being at a 16 stitch gauge, knit up on 5mm needles, I really think that they would knit up super quickly. And if you make them in a neutral color, they would also match a lot of things, I think. It doesn't even look like there is any complicated designs or complicated construction techniques used. It really just looks like they are a very nice and simple pattern, which honestly sometimes for gift knits, that's what you want. You don't want the complicated, like intricate patterns where you have to really pay attention to every single line and every detail of the pattern to get it finished, because I don't know, from my experience, if I'm gift knitting something, I want to kind of still obviously put the effort in, but maybe not have it be the main project I'm working on at the time, just because I do love making bigger sweaters and more intricate projects as well. So the gift knits for me are something that's kind of like going on the side that I can knit whenever I want to. Yeah, and also something that if I started, say, December 18th, could still be done December 24th, 25th, depending on when you unpack your present. The next pattern is the Soda Pop Beanie by Sari Nordland, and this pattern was just published in October 2025, and it is a ribbed beanie. Super fun. I love the colors. I guess the colors give it give the beanie its name. And yeah, it is I think the ribbing is 2x2 ribbed. It looks like it's a 2x2 ribbed beanie. Anyways, the gauge of this beanie is 26 stitches and 32 rows and 10cm, and it's suggested to be knit on a needle size of 3mm, which honestly, beanies are always way more like material than you think they are because of the folded rim, of course. So I don't think this will be the quickest project, but with the 2x2 ribbing, I think it'll be pretty mindless and relatively easy to knit, especially if you are on the go or just want like a smaller project on the side. The nice thing about this pattern as well is that I think it can go for both men and women. I think it's a very versatile item, depending on the color you choose, of course, for it. But because it seems like the rim is actually like double folded, so like folded up and then folded again, I think it could also make a really nice men's beanie, depending on like how often you fold it and like how long you make it. So that's a plus. You could probably make someone matching beanies. How fun would that be? Speaking of men's beanies, here's another pattern. This is called 2x2. The designer is Anne Gagnon, and this is a pattern from 10 years ago, October 2015. So it's kind of funny, like the juxtaposition of that with the Sari Nordland beanie, which just came out 10 years later. They are similar, but the construction of this one is different. And from what it looks like here, the construction is still a button-up beanie, but the decreases are very structured, like along the sides. It gives like a very neat, like dome shaped at the top, where the Sari Nordland beanie is a little bit more like tied together at the top, so it's just kind of like a different look. This one I think would also look really, really nice on men, and I think, yeah, I think it can go for both in all honesty. But the gauge here is 22 stitches and 10 centimeters and 2x2 ribbing, so it's a larger gauge, and it's knit on 4mm needles. So this one will definitely be the one that will knit up quicker compared to the Sarah Nordland one. But again, I think it's a matter of style and like who you're making it for. But just like there's so many different ways of constructing a 2x2 beanie, I think. So I just wanted to include this one here as well. The next pattern is another mini scarf. It's called the Campsite Mini, and it's by Alicia Plummer. This is also a really new pattern from October 2025, and it is a beautiful stockinette stitch mini scarf with like some, I think it's like eyelet detailing in it. It is so cute. It is really like short in the way the pictures show it, but I'm sure you can also lengthen it depending on what you want to create. This one is knit up on a fingering weight yarn, and the gauge is 26 stitches in stockinette stitch, which I know is very small, but again, you're not making a lot of fabric at all, so I don't think it'll take too long to create this. And it also features this beautiful I-cord edge at the sides. And what I also like about like these type of mini scarves, like not the super long ones like the one I showed you that I have here, but you could also use it like as a headband kind of. So this would be a really nice versatile item, because I think this one being more triangular, you could totally also use it as like, you know, like the headbands people wear like here kind of, that are kind of in fashion at the moment. So it could be a very nice like versatile gift for someone as well. Speaking of triangular pieces, the next one is the Pressed Flowers Kerchief by Amy Christophers, and this was in like collaboration with the Hobie company website. These are super cute triangular, I don't want to say cloths, but I guess like kerchiefs. I guess you could also tie them around your neck. I'm not sure they'll be long enough. But I think these are so cute and can be used for so many different things. Like I see a dog wearing it around their neck. I see someone putting it in their hair. I see someone, I don't know, using it as like a tiny little towel or something. They're super versatile, and I think therefore would make a really good gift. Now there is a gauge recommended here, but I don't really think it matters too much with these items that aren't necessarily like a piece of clothing that you'll put on yourself or a hat that needs to meet like a certain circumference. But the gauge recommended is 24 stitches and 32 rows and 10 centimeters in mosaic stitch. So it could be a really nice way to get into mosaic stitch, which, yeah, is something, I don't know, I don't think I've ever even done. So maybe intriguing, and also like what a fun way to learn something new if you're making a gift for someone, right? The recommended needles are 4mm, and yeah, they come in one size, but I'm sure you can kind of like alter the size depending on like what you need. Next is a pair of fingerless gloves, and I think with fingerless gloves, people either love them or hate them. I personally, I don't think I would wear them, but that doesn't keep me from gifting them to someone else who I know would wear them. These are called Cloudburst by Arian Gray, and these are a pair of fingerless gloves with a beautiful lace detailing at the top of the hand and a nice ribbing detail, like just kind of like to close off the glove, or at least close off where the opening section starts. The gauge recommendation is 30 stitches in stockinette stitch, which of course is small, but again, these gloves are really not big. I think they're actually smaller than a pair of socks. So yeah, and socks, in my opinion, like I knit up socks pretty quickly just because it's very, I don't know, there's just not that much fabric, I guess. So I don't think these will take too long either, and the recommended needle size is 3mm. Speaking of gloves, here we have a pair of regular mittens. These are the Sea Glass mittens by Wool and Pine. I think there's a whole Sea Glass series. I saw like a Sea Glass sweater, and the idea behind these is that like it's a good way to use up your scrap yarn, because you can kind of like combine any yarns together. So you can literally like take your pile of scrap yarns and create a really fun pair of mittens like these, or a sweater if you have a lot, I guess. These are suggested to be knit up in a DK weight yarn, and the gauge is 26 stitches and 28 row and 10 centimeters on 3.25 and 3.5mm needles. I think with something so colorful, it's actually often like at first glance you're like, oh, that doesn't actually, like, that's gonna be difficult to wear. but because they're so colorful, I think they could actually be very easy to be paired with a lot of those like other neutral items. And I think because they're mittens, who doesn't love like a splash of color in the middle of like a very dark and gray winter? So I think these are really, really nice idea, even if you want to make them for yourself to get rid of some scrap yarn. So remember how I talked about the old mittens at the beginning of this video? Now we have the old hat, also by Susanne Villa, and this is a half fisherman's stitch, or half fisherman's rib stitch hat, I should say. And I think there's something about half fisherman's rib stitch that just makes it look so nice. I think as knitters, we are often accustomed to 1x1 rib, 2x2 rib, or something like that, which always is going to look a little bit not uneven, not as neat. And I think with half fisherman's rib stitch, it just kind of like fixes that like issue of like not perfect neatness. So this is a pattern by, like I said, Susanne Müller or Paula Strickt. And it is knit up in a DK weight yarn, and the gauge is 22 stitches and 42 rows. But remember, the half fisherman's rib stitch is actually like 2 rows, is like 1 line, I guess, in 10 centimeters on 3mm needles. I think these are so beautiful. They'll take a little bit longer to knit up, of course, because it's a beanie, and like I said, beanie are always like a little bit longer than you think they are. And it is a half fisherman's rib stitch, but I think if you start early enough, this could be a super, super nice gift. The next pattern is a free pattern, and this is by the Crazy Sock Lady design. So I guess you can already guess that these are a pair of socks. I've chosen the DK weight vanilla socks, and these are exactly what they are. And I think here the name exactly depicts what the project or what the item is. It is a pair of socks knit up in a DK weight yarn. However, the suggested gauge is 28 stitches in 10 centimeters, so I'm not sure I would classify that as DK weight, but I guess the idea is that you use like a little bit of a thicker sock yarn to make the socks a little bit thicker. I'm not too sure because the recommended needle size is a 3 to 3.25 millimeters. So that's not really the gauge that I would get with them, but if you're a little bit experienced with knitting socks, I think this could be a really good project or a really good pattern for you to just kind of like be reminded of the basics. And honestly, gift knitting is often easier to make something basic, to make something super colorful or with a lot of lace or very complicated, because I think a basic is going to be a staple, and something that's very lacy given to someone who maybe doesn't love that is a little bit more tricky. So I kind of like to resort back to just like simpler things when I'm making a gift. And they also tend to be a little bit easier, a little bit quicker to knit, so it kind of works out on both ends. Yeah, and the nice thing here, of course, is that the pattern is available to us for free. Speaking of socks and free patterns, here's another sock pattern. This one is called Slow Morning DK. This one is by Camille Heng, and this is also a 28 stitches. Maybe socks are just classified as DK when the gauge is 28 stitches. I don't. Leave those comments down below, like please let me know, I'm a bit confused. But the gauge here is 28 stitches and 40 rows in stockinette stitch, although these are ribbed socks, and I guess the ribbing is on the cuff and on the top of the foot. And yeah, I think these, like I said, not much can go wrong with a pair of basic socks. And the suggested needle size here, I guess I should add, is 3 millimeters. Next we have a scarf, but this is not really a mini scarf or shawl. It is called the Double Knit Scarf by Hello Hygge Life. It is, my understanding from this is that it's a rectangle with a hole in it, so that you could wrap it around yourself and put the end of the scarf like through the hole to kind of create like a really nice visual. And this, I think, is a very clever pattern, and also a really nice way to forego or like to go around the bulkiness that a lot of scarves have. The pattern gauge is 25 stitches and 29 rows in 10 centimeters. In double knitting, so I guess you're knitting like the back and front like in the tube, from what I understand. And the suggested needle size is 4 millimeters. So this would take a little bit longer, of course, but I think it's also a really, really beautiful and intriguing pattern. Making scarves can be like bigger than making a sweater, to be honest. So with this construction, you're kind of like going around the allotness of a scarf, and especially when you're gift knitting, I think this could be a really nice option. Next we have another pair of gloves. These are super cute, so I had to include them here. They are the Rosy Mittens by Knit, and I mean the sweater, I think it's called I don't know what it was called. I guess it's called the Rosy sweater, the one with the roses. Oh, that's why it's called Rosy, right? But that one's like gone viral. So these are the mittens to match that sweater. So if you made the sweater, these would be really easy for you to make because you already kind of like know how the color work works. But even if you haven't, I don't think they'll be too complicated. The gauge is 24 stitches and 30 rows and 10 centimeters, and they're knit up on 3.5 and 4mm needles. So to me, that sounds like it's going to be a relatively quick mitten, and yeah, for the right person, they could be really, really cute as a gift. Another staple in terms of gift knitting is a headband. So you could make this one, which is called the Headband with a Twist, and that's exactly what it is. The designer is Mirella Moments, and this is essentially like a ribbed headband that twists in itself, and I think these can be really cute for people who like wearing headbands, for people who like staying nice and warm in the winter. The recommended gauge is 17 stitches and 25 rows and 10 centimeters, and they're knit up on 3.5mm needles. And the nice thing is that this pattern is actually available to us for free. Now, speaking of scarves that don't require too much fabric, next is the Nula Cowl by Vanessa Pelissa. And this is a cowl, so it is like, it's gonna sit like right up here. It is not a mini scarf, it is not a scarf, it's just one tube that is knit to then like be put around a neck, and I think it's really, really cute. The recommended gauge is 20 stitches and 26 rows and 10 centimeters, and it's knit on 4mm needles, and it does feature this beautiful, beautiful lace design. So again, if you're looking to get into that or just want to like not have a stockinette project, I think this could be really cute. And also a nice gift because it's really not too much, and it's really something that whoever is receiving that is going to be quite impressed by. Okay, the last two patterns are ones that I'm super inspired by right now because like I think I'm on the verge of casting something like this on. I don't know if it's going to be exactly these ones, but the first pattern I want to share is the Grandma Core Hood by Veronica Lindberg, or Kutevakika as we all know her here. It's essentially a hood with this beautiful lace design that can be tied together at the front, and it's knit up at a gauge of 17 stitches and 26 rows and 10 centimeters in this lace pattern that is described on 3 and 4mm needles. And I don't know, I'm in like the hood phase and the hood inspiration phase, I would say. Like, I think it's just so nice to be able to have something that's less bulky than a hat, but also that will give you like a little bit extra warmth in the colder months. And I think a hood could be a really nice middle ground. I used to really not like them. I used to really be not a hood person, but I don't know, something clicked in me and now I really want one. So I had to include them here because I think they would also be really cute as a gift because it's not too much fabric, right? It's not too intricate. Could also be a really fun way to add a pop of color in the winter. The second one I want to share, and this will also be the last pattern of this video, is the Bonnet #1 Country Edition. This one is by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and it is, I guess here it's called a bonnet. Some people call it hood, some people call it bonnet. I think the difference is like how far down it goes after the hood section finishes. This is a bonnet, so it finishes like here and then has like these long like strings essentially to tie it together. And this is a really cute one. I love like the detailing like on the sides. The gauge is also larger, it's 17 stitches and 23 rows in stockinette stitch on 5mm needles, which makes me think that this will be a really, really quick project, and probably also one that you could use your scrap yarn for if you have like 2 or 3 balls lying around. Okay, so that is the end of my 20 patterns that hopefully serve as a little bit of inspiration if you are thinking about gift knitting this Christmas. I think as knitters, we can often feel that people are expecting us to make gifts for them for Christmas. But I don't think that's really true at all. I think that's mainly in our head because like we could be making gifts for them. So I also just want to say it here again that like just because I've also just shown like a lot of gifts you could make, that's by no means a statement of you need to make everyone around you gifts. Not at all. If you want to, go for it. If not, then make them for yourself. Like that could be really cool. Make yourself a gift Christmas knit. Like how cool is that? But I hope you found some inspiration here. I definitely will be starting to think about like what I'm making for myself this Christmas, what I want to make for family members. Like I said, I'm not going to do too much this Christmas because I have other things going on. I have big sweaters going on. I have other things in life going on. I just want to be able to enjoy the holiday season and not need to rush home every single day in order to get my gift knits finished. Because we've all been there and we all know that that is not the holiday like season or like not the evenings of the nice December days that we want to spend. We're very lucky here that we get a lot of snow, there's a lot of skiing, there's really beautiful Christmas markets. So it's just a really fun time to be outside as well, although it is freezing cold and sometimes I would rather be inside knitting. But enough of that. I'm gonna close the video right here. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you found a little bit of inspiration. Let me know down below if you're gift knitting, what are you gift knitting? What are you knitting right now? I'm always so curious to hear. I love reading all of your comments. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. And until then, I hope you take care. Bye.